Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with FABTCG. Phil, say hi.
Hey guys, how you doing?
We usually don't do this. Usually Phil builds the decks and then I play them, modify and play them. We wanted to build a CC deck that we've talked about with some of the new Dynasty cards and explain the deck and what the deck's trying to do. I found the best success I have in Fab is understanding the goal of the deck. So when I build a deck like Dorinthea, 100% my focus is get that Dawnblade to be very big and keep it big. That's how I want to win. Some people play a combo Dory, control Dory. There are different ways to play Dory. I like to protect the counter or protect the queen is what these kind of decks are called in TCGs. So that is important to know when you're putting cards in, but also important to understand how your early game looks, mid game and late game potentially, and why certain cards are in, which cards you want to see 3 in the deck, or which cards you never want to see 2 of in your hand, that kind of thing. Equipment. Let's start with Sharp Eye. What made you, before Singapore, decide on Sharp Eye?
It was a couple things. So first of all, I think it's a card that is just like if you look at its rate as a piece of equipment, blocking for 1, okay, good. So it's at least as good as an Iron Rot Hood. And then like how good is this effect? Like pay 1. In a deck where you can basically guarantee that your top card is an attack action, it's not as good as drawing a card, because if you're drawing a card you could use it as resources, but basically it gives you an additional threat, and it helps you when you're trying to play like protect the Dawnblade, protect the counter. Once you have that first counter, it's just super easy to activate, and it lets you just do a lot more damage, I think, than people really expect, especially late game. You can just kind of pop off on it with stuff like Eye of a Figure and like Stroke and whatnot, and like make it really easy to confirm that it's going to work. Yeah.
Your audio is a little crackly, but I don't know how to fix it.
Okay.
Who cares?
I guess we'll just have to power through.
Sharp Eye pretty much goes into every... So I'll talk about matchups real quick, but I'll go grab a Crown of Providence. We pretty much run Sharp Eye into everything except Guardians.
Yeah.
And Providence comes in because it protects us against Command and Conquers, but also... Well, that's the main one, really. But it's also a 2-block on demand.
Yeah, pretty much it. Real simple.
Okay, Braveforge.
Yes.
Braces. I don't even need to explain this one. You don't run any other gloves. 3-block.
I think you.
Something to pitch
I think
into.
You can actually run. So I like my Null Rune to be in the glove slot personally.
Yes.
And I know you like having your Null Rune in the head slot. My logic is into the wizards or the Rune Blades or whatever. I still want to smash them with Sharp Eye.
Yeah.
So I like to keep that piece up. So I prefer to have my Null Rune in the glove slot, but otherwise I'm always playing Braces. I think there's no other equipment. And
that's the choice. If you're going to pick, Braveforge into Wizard is potentially protecting against actual attacks, but you're sacrificing burst damage or card advantage on demand. But No Rune Gloves does make more sense in most cases. Courage. We don't need to explain this one too much, but for the new players, it's 2-block really is the value you get out of it, but also allows you for the 2 or 3 swings for free. In a perfect world, we set up a Glistening turn into a Twinning Blade Refraction, so we can hit 3 times. In a perfect world. Or Supremacy. But, speaking of Guardians, and Wizards actually, we usually run Tunic.
Correct.
Why?
Real simple. Tunic generates a resource. 1 resource can be used for many things, namely paying for Arcane Barrier and also paying for Steelblade Shunt, which is a massive part of how we're even able to stabilize into the Guardians. If we don't have that card, if we don't have Fyendals Spring Tunic, then in order to play our busted 1-cost 6-block D-React, we need to use another card from our hand, and then who cares at that point? So definitely play the Tunic so you can Shunt.
And the Tunic goes into Wizard and Guardian. Guardian matchups because you'll probably see 2 or 3 turn cycles of the Tunic. I like it in Wizard because you can respond to a Frostbite at instant speed, float the resource to pay for 1 Frostbite, which you end up, it neutralizes that 1 Frostbite in most cases.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we missing? Boots. Only 1 boot. Although, some argument for Valiant Dynamo. Refraction
I
Bolt
mean,
is
I think
with Dawnblade.
Yeah, with Dawnblade, there's only one choice, right?
Yeah.
It's always the Refraction Bolters.
Now, I've seen the odd Dory player put Null Rune boots. Never do that. Very important. You have refractions into Wizard. Very.
Yeah.
I've learnt the hard way.
I think you want to kill them as quickly as possible. Although, I will say, I think there's actually, now that we have Iron Song Pride, with Iron Song Pride existing, I think we can actually run another piece of equipment, which is Kabeel.
Yes.
Let's
have a talk about it, although it's not.
Sword.
We haven't really talked about it. So Kabeel.
Yeah.
Spellbane, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Jubil, that's why. Great weapon.
Oh, Jubil, sorry.
Yeah.
Look, I actually think this is a really good choice into the Wizards because they're already on lower life, so you don't need to snowball them as hard. And once you have Iron Song Pride and this card goes to 4,
yes,
I mean it's really easy to get the Spellbane Aegis every single turn, and they're gonna pop it every single turn as well. So basically, you're getting a free value on this card every single time you're swinging with it.
Someone explained that Jubil and the new token, the Spellbane Aegis, is a direct counter to Surge. It literally says no to Surge.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Surge reads, this attack does 4 arcane. If it does 5, or it does more than 4, something happens, a benefit. So this always says no to the +1. Always. Minus arcane. So you don't have to pitch. That's the beauty. You can take 4 from a Surge 4, and it doesn't matter. Right now, I'm not prepared to play this, but I'm going to leave it in the sideboard for funsies. That's all the equipment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, let's talk about Dynasty cards last. So, our main deck is. Let's maybe start with the most overpowered cards. 3 Glistening Steel Blades.
Okay.
We don't.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, can we? Yeah, I mean, like, can we settle this right now? Like, Glistening plus Twinning, like, because I've seen this happen, and now people have started asking me about it, and I just want to, like, nip this in the bud before it goes too far. Glistening plus Twinning is a core part of the Dorinthea package. Like, this is one of the biggest power turns that you can possibly have. If you're not playing all 6 of these cards, you are crippling your deck.
The deck is underpowered without them.
Yes. Yeah, now, are there situations where you sideboard them out? Absolutely. But for your average game plan, this is a massive, massive part of how you get ahead.
My experience as a complete scrub at the game, but with thousands of reps into Dory. One counter on the Dawnblade is backbreaking into aggro decks because they suddenly have to start shedding armor or blocking 2 cards late game.
Yeah.
2 counters means Sync Belows don't work anymore, which is Sync's Fate's huge detriment to Dawnblade. Once you're at 2 counters, those cards are nothing. It's actually like a waste to block on them. 3 counters with equal life above 10, the game's over. That's how I feel. 1 for 6 is completely broken because now we can pump to 12 or 15 without much effort, which no one can block for 15 effectively. Guardians, different story. Talking about everyone but Guardians. Or some Warrior Mirrors if they're playing 9 Shunts. That can be annoying, but we don't see those that often. You don't see that build that often anymore. Glistening, Twinning allows you to hit 3 times, 4 times sometimes, but Glistening is yellow blocks for 3. You can have just that, get 1 counter, pass the turn. You can use it, miss the counter, play a potion, still a great turn. People take this out because they go, people overblock it, but that's why it's such a good card. Glistening always results in card advantage, in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow,
Every time.
somewhere, you'll get card advantage. If it's not the turn you play Glistening, it's the turn after when they try and stop the counters. Glint is absolute no-brainer. Probably the strongest card in the game. Blue that blocks for 3, gives go again, replaces itself with an effect. Nuts. Also, don't get too
Pretty good value.
invested in the card draw. We don't need the card draw to play that card. I would actually put, we might disagree on this, Run Through as somewhere up here, power level.
I think Run Through is actually incorrect.
You don't put it in anymore?
I don't play it at all. And the reason I don't play it at all is because if I want to be playing Protect the Dawnblade and Protect the Ironsong Pride counter, more specifically, Run Through does not give me any kind of power boost, and it does not generate counters. So I am less interested in getting Go again, especially in the new set, and I'm more interested in cards that say plus power.
And is that because you have Glistening and Pride? Is that why? The counters are just free.
I already have ways of getting like obviously Ironsong is the freest counter. Glistening is slightly less free. Now that I have that, I don't want to be committing even more slots in my deck to cards that don't boost power.
My argument, but we'll get maybe remove Run Through, because I have removed it, by the way, in my testing. I've worked that out all by myself. Very important to beat Icelander. That Go again in the reaction step, but that's without playing Jubil. So Jubil might be the way to beat Icelander now. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't tried.
I played Jubil as Icelander, and
I mean, it makes
sense. Pretty solid.
Let's leave it in for now, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Up and Steel.
Other core cards, Sharp and Steel. Obviously, 0 for 3 is pretty good. Singing Steelblade, Spoils of War, Steelblade Supremacy.
Yeah, I'm not ranking them. I'm just Singing's probably our strongest card, especially now with Puncture. Holy crap! Singing into Puncture is stupid. It's +5, which we couldn't used to get to without paying 2. Now we pay 1, which we'll get to. Spoils. Always. Anything with Go again and a damage pump is very, very good. Also, makes us immune to Kyloria. Very important.
Very true.
If you are new and asking why it generates coppers, Kyloria hits, she doesn't draw a card, she just steals a copper, which is a waste of time. Any reds that are are there any non-Dynasty reds that have to be in? Yes, attack reactions.
So have we got Supremacy in?
We'll get there next. Stroke has to have 3 reds.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you're going to play
Sharp Eye.
Helmet Sharp Eye, you have to play 3 Stroke, right?
But also lets us fix crappy hands on occasion. Sometimes you got 2 blues, a Stroke will draw you into a... And remember, guys, you can dictate when things happen. So if you have a Stroke and a Glint, remember to always trigger Stroke first to see what's on top. I've missed this trigger before. Play them in order, decide what triggers first. So Stroke allows you to put... So if you have 2 red reactions in hand and a Glint, you can put Stroke... Sorry, you play Stroke, put the red reaction on top, keep the blue or whatever you just drew in hand, and then Glint to draw the red reaction back. Also how we play into Sharp Eye. Ideal hands of Sharp Eye are actually when you have the nuts in hand and you just use Sharp Eye to draw blue to have a big turn.
Yeah.
So you go attack, Sharp Eye.
Stroke to draw the blue.
But I usually like to Stroke like an Ironsong response to the top and like back from hand if I draw something crap.
Yeah. And that's I get you. Yeah, because
you're guaranteed.
You just play it.
But you already know you can't miss. You're not risking anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to non-attack actions. Supremacy is still a must-have.
Yes, Supremacy is definitely an instant 3 of.
Yep. +2 for the rest of the turn.
Let me think. Iron Song Response.
Of course. This is our combo card for usually singing into Iron Song is 1 for 4, which is great value.
Yeah. I think that's
Plus-
I think one route is core.
Now, this is where most warrior players disagree. We got Overpower and Route. What's the other one? Biting Blade is the third big attack reaction. We don't run it.
Mm-hmm.
How come?
So I think Biting Blade just became playable in a different build of Dory, but not this one. So
Biting Blade reads it's +3, but +1 if they blocked from hand. Is that correct?
Yeah, +3 base, and then
for the rest of
reprise
the
your
turn
weapons
is
gain
+1.
+1.
For the rest of the turn.
Yeah, correct. And it's all your weapons. So the thing is, on Dawnblade, you have to swing. You have to swing. It's the first swing. It's only a 2 for 4, which is not an amazing rate. And then if you hit, you get another +1 out of it. That's like 2 for 5 at reaction speed is not super good with that many conditions attached to it. So we just don't play it.
Yeah, I actually never realized it says weapons you control. So when you're playing 2 weapons, it's way more damage.
It's really good.
Should play that in
really
Kasai. That's a Kasai combo reaction I hadn't thought of. Especially if they block the first swing. So Overpower's Route, in my head, are interchangeable. But they're not quite interchangeable. Because we'll talk about it. But how many do you put of each in a CC deck?
When I start, I put 1 route and 3 red Overpower and 3 blue Overpower.
Yeah. Red-blue Overpowers is very important for the end of the game. You can pretty much offer 2-card hand and an arsenal, win the game. Because just they don't want to block for 6 or 12 late game. Well, they can't. They'll get stuck in a blocking phase. So you go 1 and 3. This is playstyle based. Do what feels good and what your meta feels like. Because Route is much stronger than Overpower in some circumstances. Removing a blocking card like Guardians using an unmovable or a staunch from hand is backbreaking. You just sometimes win the game off 1 route because they didn't arsenal the staunch. Alright, new one. Puncture. This is a sick card.
So we're talking Dynasty now.
Yeah, might as well because we're in the reaction. Why is this a 3 of?
So I know it's at least a 2 of. I don't know if it's a 3 of, but I'll talk about why. So first of all, any 1 for 3 in the reaction phase is great.
Well, we were running
trying to protect the Dawnblade
Razors.
Yes. Yeah. We were playing Razor and Thrust before, right? So
this is just
basically
better than a Razor.
Yeah, strictly better for our deck, right? It blocks for 1 more, and it has an additional effect attached to it. So strictly better than those cards. Where I say maybe it's not a 3 of is because I think deck space is actually quite tight because we're going to add Iron Song Pride as well. And when I look at Puncture, Piercing 1 is much less relevant the further into the game you get. So the first copy and the second copy are really good because it's likely your opponent is going to be blocking with armor earlier on in the game. But later on in the game, when they're not as likely, I'm kind of going, okay, so comparing this to other cards I could have in this slot, is it really as good? Now, don't get me wrong, into some matchups, like I think if your opponent's on like Arachne or something, where they have armor for the whole game, no matter what, then yeah, this card's cracked, right? But into a lot of decks, like even into Guardian, late game, they're not going to be blocking you with armor because they've used it up already. You forced it out of them as part of your early game plan. And that's part of like the Protect the Dawnblade plan, is to force their armor out early.
So I have 2 things to say about that. 1, very good players save their armor. I win more games when I have refraction and courage, like second cycle. It's crazy powerful late game.
Yeah.
Second, where was I going with this? Determination, which we didn't used to run, is super efficient at forcing armor blocks. That's usually what people do when you go supremacy, determination, the old combo. Everyone throws armor at that. They don't do that anymore, but is that maybe one way to play the deck now, is go back to determination, glistening, or determination, supremacy, and then have a puncture in arsenal? That's what you're trying to do, is singing puncture. Just force
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that there's a build that wants to play like 3 determinations. I'm not super sold on the idea, just because I think Ironsong Determination then is like, it's only a good card once you've got a counter. So now I have to draw Ironsong Pride or Glistening first. I have to get a counter, and then it's good. So I feel like it's a little too many hoops to jump through, but I could definitely see it potentially being like a different build of deck. I think the more attack reactions you're running, like what we're doing, the weaker Determination becomes.
Yeah, determination is very good with front pumps, like sharpened steel. Determination is super strong.
Yeah.
Warrior's Valor determination is very strong. Let's talk about the other. I'm leaving the big card till last. Precision Press red.
Red? No. I think
came
red
to the same conclusion, but why?
Okay. Because it's face up, right? It's a face up effect that says, if you block with armor, I get +3. So why would my opponent ever block with armor?
This is crazy in Kasai, though, I feel. Late.
Maybe.
The reason is...
I think blue is so good, though.
Well, blue is, I feel like, a must-have. It's definitely better than Blade Flash. Blade Flash feels so bad.
Yes. Yeah.
It's still a... Also, the blue goes +1, so you swing Dawnblade for 3, but then they can't block with armor because it will just +1. Like, it'll negate the armor block, is what I'm saying.
Basically, I think the +3 from piercing is just so unnecessary.
1 is enough, right?
And yeah, 1's enough, because they're gonna armor. Like, if you're armor blocking, it's usually 3 +1 from armor, right? So, like, the +1 from the piercing clause is always enough. It's unconditional. Go again with a little bit of oomph attached to it.
Yep.
Card's great.
Now, Precision Press, Determination, Supremacy is cracked, but again, hoops to jump through.
yeah, like that's a 5-card hand, right? So,
but the combos, you cannot stop it unless you have a big D react now.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense? Like, it's the only way people used to block it was like Viserai just throws 6 block at it from armor, and then you're like, oh well, I can't hit. But this negates that completely. The downside of piercing face up is that they don't use their armor, so you're procrastinating the problem. They will.
Yeah. I don't like the red one at all.
Yeah, I agree. I really like it in Kasai, because Kasai, that's just gonna force the first swing to hit and make copper potentially, or block from hand. Like, the only way to stop that, you know what I mean? Because Warrior, like Dorian to Kasai, I throw my courage at the first swing.
Sure.
That stops that, and they're very likely to make copper the turn they play Precision Press. No one wants to block it 2 with Go Again. Face up. No one. Pride. My spoiler card. 3 of.
Good card, man.
Why?
Why? It's because it says instant on it. I mean, that's why.
And it actually has no downside, because the downside is an inherent. It has a downside in other decks, but on Dawnblade Dorinthea, there's no downside because it's just the repeat of the Dawnblade text, more or less.
Yeah, this card's really stupid. Giving Warriors like even because Warrior I think already wanted to go second into like 95% of games.
Now we
Now
just go
you just want to
second.
go. Oh, you just go second every time. I think that's what the meta is turning into. To be honest, is you want to go second. Pretty much every deck wants to
So
go
I played
second.
this in Blitz.
Yeah.
I went 3-1. I lost to
Okay.
Dash, which now just feels broken.
Dash is very good. Yeah.
Harambe Blaster, Habibi Blaster is nuts. It's
Yeah.
stupid.
Habibi Blaster.
Yeah, but it's not just that. Harpoon into Dory
Also,
is completely busted because they just like make me block with my blue. Like, oh, great. Fuck my life. I didn't want to block. Now I have to block. It's really good. The Harpoon is nuts.
yeah.
Anyway, the reason I'm binging up, I did have a turn where I had 2 in hand, and he went to Arsenal. Going second, I go,
Yeah.
no. Flashed them in, won the game. It's very hard to lose the
Yeah.
game after that, actually. Because, yes, they will probably block 12, but you forcing to block 12, turn 1 or 2, is stupid. Because
Oh
also,
yeah,
if people are
absolutely.
Arsenal or pass, it means they had good cards and they want to do a combo. And then you're going, well, here's my Dawnblade for 5. You have to block it or it's going to go to 6. So, step 1
Yeah.
with Pride that I learned, obviously go second.
Oh, I'll give you
Then-
a fun figure.
Mm.
Because it's definitely an interesting one. So, assuming you're playing a 60 card deck,
Mm.
the odds of you starting with 1 copy of Ironsong Pride, or 1 or more copies of Ironsong Pride in your opening hand is 20%,
Yep. Huge.
which is really high.
Well,
it's really. Oh, it's like 19.995 or
yeah,
something, or
here's my
whatever.
thought process. We go second, because if you hit that turn 1 and you're going second, it's very strong.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy.
This card requires some discipline. Do not flash it in as often as you think you should. It's better in Arsenal most of the time, because a 4-card hand with a lot of pumps is really good way to pump the sword, hit for 1, flash Iron Pride. Now you hit for 2, but your next turn is crazy. And don't get greedy with multiple ones, I found, because you can throw 3 down early, but if they block you out, you have none left in the deck.
Yeah.
This is a good combination with everything else we do. You do want to save one for later in the game. The pressure when there's no armor is much better than super early. I've learnt to pitch them. They don't block, so get rid of them. Now, you can't fetch this with singing, so yeah, you want to like balance when you have them. Make the decision if it's going in Arsenal or.
Good job, LSS. You fucking balanced the card correctly. Because if you could search this, it would be ridiculous.
If it was but if it was an attack react, it wouldn't be as good, right? Like,
I mean, I honestly think it would be better just because you could search it off singing Steel Blade.
But we couldn't play it at instant speed like a Prism Aura, which is
Sure.
about.
Swings and roundabouts. Yeah. No, I get you.
What yellows are we missing? Run through. We got to talk about determination. I'm playing 1 or 2 most of the time. What are you running?
I play 1 determination. I think
Sideboard,
it's a perfectly fine card to pitch. I think it's. I think you play 1 in main just because it works really well with Glistening. It works really well with Ironsong. It works really well with Steel Blade Supremacy. And if you draw it early, you pitch it. Comes back late game to help you clean the game up. Right. So I think it has enough like utility as a 1-of. I think 2's greedy.
I'm just looking at what my list normally looks like. Warriors Valor. We disagree on this one, I think.
Yeah, okay. So with Ironsong Pride, I now am more inclined to play Warriors Valor, but I only want to play Warriors Valor when I already have 1 counter.
Yes. So it's 7.
So for that reason, I would play. Yeah, exactly. So for that reason, I would play only 1 or 2 copies of Warriors Valor.
Okay. 3 overpowers, 1 route. What are you changing anything? Actually, you can't see my screen.
I
We ain't
can't.
missing
But
any reds.
I don't think we're missing any. Well, yeah, it's like Iron
Sideboard
Pride, Iron
reds.
Response, Alpha Blood, Overpower. Yeah,
We'll
look,
get to
there are
the
sideboard
sideboard.
reds, right?
Yeah. We'll
But
do sideboard
yeah,
last.
yeah. I think that's kind of it.
Yellows.
Once you put in the four reactions, like you're good.
I
5
think all
reactions.
our
Sorry.
yellows are done. Twinning, Glistening, Determination, Singing, and potentially Run Through. We can remove Run Through.
Yeah. I'm really off run through, but
Okay.
we'll float it.
Blues.
Yeah.
What I've got in here so far is Precision Press and Glint. Overpower is
Mhm.
always a 3 of. Why?
Yep.
Because it'll just win you games.
Yes.
It's a +4, which isn't great, but for a blue,
Mhm.
it's amazing. I have a Ophidia
Yep.
because it's the best,
Yep.
or one of the best synergies with Sharp Eye. But also, the hidden secret
Yep.
with Eye is you will cycle your deck that much quicker to see the impactful cards. That's the real why it helps.
Yep.
You'll see it glistening way quicker. Also, if I pitch an Eye on a turn where I'm pitching 2 blues and there's a red on top, I'll put the red on the bottom so that there's some reds, not just 2 blues coming up together. I try and make sure. Stroke. Same reason.
So actually, there's one thing I want to say. So I think the right number of blues in
Yes.
Dory right now is somewhere between 21 and 23, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
You pretty much want to see a blue every single turn, so you have to work with that in the back of your mind. So
And what's the number?
Yeah.
So if we have 21 blues, it's over 30%, right?
Mhm.
Slightly. Out of a 60 card deck.
Slightly, yeah, 33 point something. Yeah.
Yep. Which is the
So if
minimum.
you got 20, yeah, basically. I mean, like if you have 22 blues, then you'll draw blue in 85% of your hands.
Which is decent. I usually like to go 23 because I don't count Glint as a blue. Because I want to see Glint with another blue. I never want it on its own. It sucks on its own.
Yeah.
You pitch it early, but you really want to play the Glint as much as you can. So I like having...
Yeah.
And also
That's
in the
pretty good.
ice meta that we're in, it's good to have some extra blues. Stroke is a 3 of.
I think it's 2 to 3 of. It really depends how much space you got.
How about Puncture?
Blue Puncture.
Blue Puncture.
I think Blue Puncture is a 2 to 3 of as well.
Yeah, I think it's better than Out for Blood because it makes this hit land. Doesn't give me damage for the next hit. This hit is more important in this build. Like it's 1 for 2.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
I tend to agree. Yeah, the same downside from before is like late game, will they actually have their armor? That's why I think like maybe it's only 2.
So you're going like 2 punk, just 2 Out for Bloods or something, like balancing it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'll reduce these later. Out for Blood's like nearly always in because it is quite good late game. By the way,
there's still some number of Out for Blood blues.
Pretty much all blues that block for 3, which is why they're in the deck. Potions.
I think they all are. All our blues block for 3 or higher. Yeah, so potions. Potions I think became a little bit harder now that we have Iron Song Pride.
Yeah.
Because we want to be playing 3 Pride. Yeah, exactly. We have 3 Pride. We're definitely playing Eye. I love Energy Potion, but I think because we need to be keeping the pressure up more, I think we have to cut Energy Pot to like 2 or 1, depending on where your build ends up going. I've got 2 right now, but I could see 1. I think 3 is just wrong now.
Right now we're at 21 blues. Are you putting Shunt blue in mainboard?
I mainboard 2 blue Shunts.
See, that would put us at 23 on the dot. If we go 2 potion.
Yeah, but do you also have blue Iron Song response?
No. which we want
So
because
that I think is a
I've
3
won
off.
games of Iron Song Response. Blue. It's the
Yeah,
one
a
card
lot of us have.
that will not fuck you if it's in Arsenal late game. Like, it's not the worst thing.
That's true.
Perfect, you put a blue overpower if you got 4 blues in hand, but Iron Song Response is easy to play up. 26 blues. So I think you go 2 out for blood, 2 puncture, and 2 shunt.
Yeah, you can do like 2 alpha blood, 2 puncture, 2 shunt, 2 stroke, 2 energy pot, something like that is potentially
Yeah,
good.
that's roughly what 23 is. We're on the dot now. Okay, we're at 64 cards and 8 equipment. Oh, you know what I haven't put in there?
Yeah.
The actual Dawnblade. I don't have a weapon. Okay, this is sideboard now. Red Shunt. Red Shunt and Tunic is a marriage made in heaven. That's what you're doing, basically, right? Shunt only goes in Guardian matchup when you have Tunic. E-Strike.
Yeah.
Toss.
Yep.
Just wrote E-Strike, and it had no idea what I meant. Why did we run
So, like,
E-Strike?
basically, what we're doing with this sideboard, is the same thing that every deck that has low value, i.e. Icelander, is doing by playing attack actions, which is we're supplementing the fact that though our weapon and attack reactions are technically below rate, they're good in different ways. Into Guardian, the way that they're good, i.e. playing in the reaction step, is much weaker. So we offset that by bringing in threats that have just good raw damage numbers, and it turns out the best ones that we have access to are E-Strike, Red Fyendals, Fighting Spirit, and Red Wounded Bull, and that's it. It's just a pure numbers game.
We're just doing the Michael Hamilton package. Not that he invented it, but that's what it is.
Yeah. What is Southeast Asia?
76. We're over. We're 88. No, 84. 85.
84.
Cards.
85.
Gotta lose 5. Some are not negotiable. So, I'll count them out.
Yeah.
The sideboard is not negotiable. The only way you have to have them in.
Although sideboard is 12 cards. Yeah.
That's what I want to talk to you about. Jubil is adding a slot, which removes a card, but I really like it. I want to try that. We still have 3 red punctures, 3 warriors valors. The reds, I think. And then we have 23 blues, so theoretically we can maybe lose the blue precision point.
If it were me making the call, I would be cutting Warriors Valor down to 2 or 1. I'd be cutting Puncture down to 2 probably.
Red?
I'd even look at red.
Yeah.
I'd be looking at cutting Red Overpower potentially down to 2 as well. And then I'd be looking at trimming a blue from somewhere.
What you said before. Why not cut Warriors Valor completely and keep the puncture in?
So, yeah, I still think Warriors Valor as a...
If we're trying to hit, Overpower route will usually always make us hit. You nearly would rather 6 of those and no Warriors Valors with Pride.
Yeah.
The Pride build.
I think that's a totally fair way of playing it, just because Go Again... Like, the reason that I kind of said, like, okay, maybe I just want 1 red Warriors Valor is if we then go through our deck and we look at how much Go Again do we actually have, it's like Glint, Glistening, Precision Press, Spoils, and, like, Singing sort of searches out another Go Again. So we don't actually have that much Go Again. We have kind of 15-ish sources of Go Again. So what we're essentially hedging on is if we cut Warriors Valor completely and we're not playing stuff like Hit and Run, and instead we're playing Precision Press, we're not playing Yellow Hit and Run, we definitely don't have space for that card. Basically, we're saying to ourselves is, okay, we're going to rely so heavily on like that Iron Song Pride counter or that Glistening Twinning combo to get us that first counter, and then just chip throughout the game until we get to the next one, and chip till we get to the next one, and so on and so forth. So if we're doing that, then we're kind of giving up on the Dawnblade text that says second attack gets a +1 counter. We're kind of giving up on that, like, we'll have 5 counters on our Dawnblade sort of thing.
We're not
And
trying to
instead we're
swing
saying,
twice every turn.
exactly, yeah. What we're trying to do is say when we swing twice, it needs to really matter, and we want it to cost us as little as possible to swing twice. So if that's what we want to do, then yeah, definitely, we can look at trimming down the Warrior's Valor.
Yep.
Now, this actually brings up an interesting point of, like, how good is Spoils of War now?
Yeah.
Which is, like, the thing with Spoils of War is it works really well with Twinning Blade.
Mm-hmm. I lost you.
And because it just gives you natural go again. Sorry, yeah. What I was saying was the reason that, like, Spoils of War is good is because it works well with Twinning Blade. And it allows you to just always get that second swing in, and you can also go Spoils of War into Energy Pot early game, which I think is a good enough play to warrant keeping it.
Spoils, because it's guaranteed +2 and going in. It's also, if you cut all the going in, you auto lose to Dromite. You have no chance. Warriors Valor is actually very, very good into Dromite, yellows and blues, but you can't put cards in for one matchup, I feel. At least our sideboard is for 2 matchups, plus poppers. They're all poppers. That's the beauty of them. And E-Strike lets us go a little wide into dragons if we really need to clear board, because you can technically do 3 attacks off an E-Strike. I think if you're still watching this video 40 minutes in, this is the takeaway. This is the rough 80 card deck. There's a conversation to be had about taking out Sharpen Steel. There's a conversation to be had about going 3 overpowers 3 routes. Definitely the determination can be cut in favor of something else. Like, there's an argument to put a Warrior's Valor there. Heck, there's an argument to put a hit and run in there, Determination will win you some games, especially if you are forced to go first and you get Sharpen Steel, Determination, Glint. It's a stupid combo to start the game with. You will leak damage. But overall, 21 to 23 blues. I think even Pride can be removed if you're going to try and play a different style of Dory. If you're playing super control Dory, mid-range, this is not the deck. There's, like, different decks.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably do another video on.
Real key point. If you want to play Jubil, you have to play Ironsong Pride.
Oh, yeah. Because you're expecting it. That's the other thing too, man. Jubil, you could argue playing into Viserai as well, right?
Man, I don't... okay.
I want to test that.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually an interesting one. Like, how well do they block versus you being able to just save a life every single turn? Like, it's an interesting point to look at, potentially. I haven't thought about that.
What's 1 less rune chant damage per turn worth? That's into a pretty quick matchup.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is Jubil relies less on going in as well. You just want it to hit. You want to get the value of hitting. Swinging twice is a bonus. You don't get a second token. So you're blocking with 2, swinging with it. If you have a Pride counter or 2, you're blocking with 3 and swinging for 5.
And that's why the card works into Wizards, because, like, into Icelander, bro, you're like, how often are you swinging twice into Icelander? Yeah. And, like, into Kano, if you swing twice, they'll kill you.
Yeah. My advice on this deck, your Refraction Bolters are way more important if you take out run-throughs and Warriors Valors. Do not crack them for, like, 1 counter. Crack them on the Glistening turn when you know you can swing or hit 3 times. That's... Hopefully you have a Pride out and a 5-card hand when you crack Refractions. Because you can use it to deal 6 damage, or you can actually do a 28 damage turn off it if you time it correctly off courage and having the right tools in hand, especially like stroke into sharp eye. Yeah, crazy turns, but you need refractions for them. You need that free go again to swing 3 or 4 times for sure. Thanks, Phil. I'll post this deck list up. Test it. Let us know what you change. It's rough. I haven't tested Jubil at all, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Any last words?
Sounds good. Yeah, look forward to seeing this. I'm going to be playing this deck in some form. It's really exciting.
All right, guys. Talk soon.